Okay, so we'll start out by introducing you. Your name is
David Drechsler.
Dave
Yeah,
Drechsler.
Dr. D.
Dr. D, chiropractor.
Chiropractor.
And why I chose you for this, right? Because there's lots of veterans out there. Is one, I look up to you. You're a mentor to me, and you have a lot of wisdom, and I enjoy our conversations and our relationship with each other. So I thought no one better for this than you.
That's mutual agreement, respect.
Let's see. All right. Simple questions. We'll have some fun with it. Okay. Why did you join the military? What had you join? What made you join? Was the
number one, I was going to college during the time of the draft, and I was 2S deferred because I was going to college, but my college didn't send in my transcripts, and so the 2S classification went to 1A classification, and I had a letter that said to report to the LA Induction Center right away. So I went down to LA and went through their physical, and by the time I got home, they were going to give me a draft notice. They were going to draft me.
Oh, so you got drafted. You didn't make a choice.
Well, I was going to get drafted because at the time everybody knew they were going to get drafted because they did it by neighborhoods. It'd be like post box, like zip codes, and everybody started calling. Did you get your draft notice yet? No, and everybody started getting crazy when people started getting them.
Oh,
and
wow.
so I knew mine was coming, and my dad was a lifer, and he did 30 years in the Navy, and we weren't that close, but he said to me that, let me swear, he went from joined when he was 17. His dad was kind of an abusive German immigrant. They call them aliens at the time when they come over. It's really curious. They used to call all the immigrants aliens, and then they changed that term to immigrants. But he worked him to death, and he ran away from home when he was 17, joined the Navy, spent 30 years in the Navy, went from E1 all the way up to Chief Petty Officer, was Chief Warrant Officer all the way to the top. And so he said he could swear me in. We'd never been close. I said, well, that probably is a good bond. And so I joined the Navy with promises to be on subs because I wanted to be a submariner because that looked cool. I saw the movies, Run Silent, Run Deep and stuff. And so he swore me into the Navy. I was an E2 because I had 2 years of college. And before that, I fought my draft because when I was going to get drafted, I went before the draft board, which about 200 of us were in this small cigar box room, and the draft board was there, and nobody ever got out of it. They always said, well, this is the reason you can't draft me. I got a family and kids. Next, you're drafted. So everybody got drafted. I went in there and says, hey, my school didn't send transcripts. I'm a student. I'm active. Next, draft. And so, but then, I did that, and then the second part of it, I think more important, is that when my dad was stationed in Hawaii, a good buddy of my best friend, his dad was an Air Force pilot, Robin Reiser, and he was an ace in Korea and Vietnam. And so about 1964, he got shot down, and he was in Hanoi Hilton for like 7 years, and he, Bobby, my friend, he had 4 brothers and sisters and just destroyed their family. I mean, it was really sad. He was one of the ones on Time magazine when he came back and that sort of thing, but when he came back, he wasn't the same person at all. And so his wife had remarried, and because she thought he was dead. I mean, it was a crazy story. And I felt, if he could go out and do that, I feel like I have a desire to serve my country. And at the time, I was just floating anyway, taking random courses in college, and so I felt I could find who I'm supposed to be.
So you came to you calm yourself down inside once you realized you were getting drafted. You're like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, and then I said, this is what I believe in. I believe in my country. I believe in fighting for freedom, and I think it's too many people are backing out. My close friends were conscience objectors, which means they said due to their own belief system they decided they would not fight or kill. And my best friend from here, John Bird, he joined the Peace Corps, and he was a guy who set off for, when I got back from my first tour, and I don't know how much you want to go into that stuff, but But and so I felt I needed to serve, and this is a good spot for me. I couldn't find a place that I was going to do. A lot of my friends went to college, they were, UCSB, and, they had a focus on their future. I had none. I just said, well, this will be good. I can find out who I am.
Perfect. Thank you. And how long did you serve for?
3 years.
3 years?
Yep. I got it because I was in a war zone. If your last duty station is in a war zone and you have less than a year to serve, they can't send you to the fleet, which is a 16-month commitment. And so all the vets who came and had less than a year, they released them. But for me, it was, and this is where another interesting story from my dad. I was on a fire support base out of Nankan, and we're just getting our butts kicked because NVA were all over the place, and we'd get hit every night, and I thought that was it. And when my year came up, there was the Marines that were in charge. In fact, I was part of the ragged Riverine forces with long beards, long hair, and I had actually said, okay, I was ready to go home, and the Marine colonel there said, no, you're not going anywhere, buddy, because you gain a day when you fly back, so you have 366 days. So you're going to stay there for 6 more months. Yeah. And what I did was...
That's you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go. And so when he said that, I wrote my dad a swan song. I go, we're getting overrun and we don't have any support. So, because all the forces been pulled out and we were here by ourselves. That was in 70. And so I saw my boat, because I was first on a riverboat, and they had changed it, sold all their weapons to the NBA, and they were fishing out there in the rivers. And so I wrote my parents. It says the base next to us got overrun, and what they tell you if you're going to get overrun, the next thing you do is jump in the river and float out to the sea because you have no support. So I wrote that. Next thing I know, this bird colonel come in and goes, "It's your lucky day, buddy, because you got your cut approved." I go, "Wow, how did I do that?" So I flew into Saigon and from Chinook, and then I won't get myself incriminated by how I got out of Saigon. So I did, and I came home. And then I found out later, after my dad passed on, that he had actually written to Buford and said, he's been 3 years in Vietnam, and he won't allow a day off for his, which he deserves to be out of the service, and so he got me out. But never able to thank him because see, that's me in the bush. That's my ID card. That's me. We were robbing. We were going into. We were going into the one that's going under the concertina wire. My buddy and I went AWOL, and we went in to visit the Australian R&R base because they had surfboards there.
Nice.
The only way we could get in was under the concertina.
Looked like some nice waves there and nice beach.
Yeah, so we went surfing the first time in South China Sea before the border started hitting us in rockets.
1969.
Yeah. Yep.
Summer 69?
Yep. So
that's cool.
That's how I got out. So I spent 3 years in, and no, I didn't do any reserve duty because you don't have to do that if you serve in a war zone. So I got out.
What was your most significant experience, and why?
I think my most significant experiences was working with the villagers. We were, one of my, on the boats, we had, we were living in the villages because the Navy didn't have any place for you. If you were on the Marine Force, you just stayed in the villages, the hooches with the Papasons, and the villagers were just awesome. You didn't know which ones were NBA and which ones were, Arvids on your side. But, the Mamapans were great. I think it was, what I saw was the abuse where, a lot of my friends would, take advantage of the young girls there, and it was just really distraught. It really upset me when, they would trade girls. Their families were starving too, so they would sell their daughters and stuff like that. It was really sad, but the villagers were great, and they took care of us. They protected us. My second tour, I was security at a fire support base. We had Navy SEALs there. We had Army Razorbacks and Navy SEALs, which are chopper pilots and stuff. And we worked the villages. We protected the villagers. Even though I was Navy, I was out there in the bush with them all. and they were there, and they're kind people. In fact, it was so significant at the time to get to know the villagers and why you were fighting or trying to help them, which you realize there's no way that you can help them. But years later, when my oldest daughter remarried, she remarried a Vietnamese guy, and his parents were from Hanoi, and it was amazing because I realized when I was firing into the villages, his parents were there, you know, at the same time. But they escaped, and he was born in the States. But that was the first question my daughter asked me: is how would I feel about her marrying a Vietnamese guy? And I go, they're great family people. They're great people, and I have no problem with that. And, you know, I won't eat Vietnamese food because I eat it too.
You know what might be in it?
Yeah, so you know, it's just so they, when we visit them in San Diego, we go to Vietnamese restaurants, and I just no, you know, like I had monkey meat,
You don't want any tenon or intestines or anything?
Yeah, you don't know what's in it, so.
That's why they make a lot of soups. They just throw everything in there.
So that was a big thing, and you know, I had no idea what was happening in the States because we had no communication, no cell phones, no, you know, computers or anything like that. You know, nobody knew where we were, and you know, I would get letters if the mail barge would get blown up. You know, I get a letter about every 3 or 4 months, and so they had no idea where you are. My parents thought I was dead. You know, my fiance before I left.
How do you know when it's time to get out of there?
Oh, they let you know that.
Oh,
But, yeah, you're on. But
you have radios and everything like that?
you just that connect to the normal support base. I was out of Nam Can and Vung Tau, which is the Mekong Delta, which goes into Cambodia. So yeah, they know where you are as far as your home base. But we would go up Mekong Delta, we'd be in Cambodia, and we would be all over the place. And they had no idea. Yeah, a lot of people probably, you know, don't know that there's no maps on the rivers. So you just say you go down to where this tree is like bent, looks like a willow tree, then you turn right on the river. And I mean, it was like, you had no idea, you know.
Man, sure people get lost pretty easily then, right?
Yeah, no GPSs, there's nothing. We went around a couple of times, we got stuck in a river.
Most people can't even go to the next town over without GPS.
Yeah, we get stuck in the rivers and stuff because the tide go out, and then we'd sink on the bottom, and you'd have to protect yourself, throwing, you know, concussion grenades in the water from the zappers that would be coming, or the NVA that would be in the water. It was crazy.
Okay, so being with the mama sans in there in the villages.
Yep, the families, the kids especially, the babies were the most important for us. We had a baby that mama san, you know, we got a call. It says pick up a family, and so our boat was close by. We picked this baby up, and she died on our boat, and we got her to medevac stations were blown, so we had to find a medic back because, you know, everything was being destroyed, and we got her in, and they diagnosed her with cholera, and so we were all exposed to cholera, and so you know, stuff like that they had no idea, you know, the diseases and things like that were going on, nor did we, and so you take the risk of, you know, having cholera and stuff, don't know that you're going to get it or not, and so they quarantined us for a couple of weeks to see if everybody was going to die on our boat. I mean, that was.
You guys were all right?
Yeah.
Or nobody got it?
Nobody got it. It's crazy, but she died in our arms, so it's crazy to see the villagers, and you realize they've been fighting wars for years and years and years and years, and it's just normal routine for them. You know, the other thing was crazy is you don't know who the enemy is we would be getting on the fire support base when I was there. It was like we would get naval intelligence would tell us that your red light, you know, get ready, you're going to get hit tonight, because, you know, and you'd look around, the VNs would be all over the place, nothing, and the next night they go, hey, you guys are clear, and we get the crap beat out of us, we get rocketed and everything else, and you look around, no VNs there. And couple of people that we got them drunk in the village, some of the ARVN officers, and they said that the NVA had their families out there and threatened to kill their families if they didn't walk off clicks on our base, because they were rocketing they were hitting every target they were going for, and that's because they were, you know, they were ARVNs, or, you know, friendlies on one side, and at night they were NVA to protect their families. They were doing it all so they don't kill their families, you know.
you never know what's going on.
I had no idea.
Day to day.
Nope. Every day we woke up and sang Alice's Restaurant by Arlo Guthrie. I don't know if you ever heard that, but it's worth a listen. And, you know, it's a great song.
Let's get you in the mood for the day.
We just say, who's still here? Yeah, we're all still here. And people get lost at night, get shot, so get fragged. I mean, it's crazy. And what a chaotic world that was.
Well, it seemed like forever too, huh? It was 3 years. It was like...
Well, I was home. I did 18 months, and then I came back, and then I did a year. When I came back, then my training was jungle training, and then I went via Navy. I went to Marines Camp Pendleton for 6 weeks of combat training. So they had us all over the place. I was at Coronado, and then they sent us back over.
Turned you into a machine.
Yeah. Yep.
Machine. What are you most proud of your service and most valuable leadership learning during your journey? Like, where you think you learned, learned the most character, and like some
I think
leadership?
team building, that you worked with your team, and you know that you're going to sleep and somebody's going to be awake on a watch. And they'd be stoned, but they'll be awake on the watch. And
having that like accountability, like
yeah,
you're accountable.
Yeah, and they take it serious. I mean, we did take it serious. The team building, I saw, you know, just in certain areas, you know, there is some form of structure, but most of the time there's no form of structure. Nobody knew what was happening every day, and that was because of confusion, communication, stuff like that. I know that, you have to depend on yourself, and that was the best thing for me to learn is you're accountable, and you show up because you want to show up, and you do what you do because you feel that's what you need to do, and you don't have to wait till somebody to push you. And we had guys on the boat and stuff that wouldn't do their work, and I mean, they were slothful, and it was sad because you just had to take over for them, you know. Some guys got shot for not doing what they should do, you know. It'd be at night, they'd be gone. You go, where'd he go? I don't know. He's not here today. And then, so the idea is that you have, you know, you get what you put in. And like my first tour, I mean, there's so many crazy things that when I was on the rivers, and you know, I knew that, like I said, that I was there. It was almost seems like the mainland was over the States was a ways away because you just never heard anything. You had no idea. And so when I was on my first boat, my boat captain, he was an ex-UDT guy. He got thrown out of the UDT because he was crazy, you know. And so they said he would never be in Vietnam and put us on our boat. So he was there, our boat captain, and he didn't care who was there. He'd shoot anybody anytime, you know. And he looked at me after I worked with him on my boat for, you know, the time frame, and he said, well, he says, you're an E3, now we're going to, you know, I'm going to promote you to a chief petty officer, which is E4, and E4 is like you get the bird on your shoulder instead of just the stripes. Big promotion for an enlisted, and he says that's because we're going to bring you back because you did a good job, and we need people like you, and so this is your billet. You're going to be, you know, he says you're going to be a gunner's mate, and we're going to train you in weapons, and you're going to come back over and
do
serve.
another tour. Do another tour.
Yeah.
That's why you did promotion.
Yeah. Yeah, and guys, you know, it's funny because when you sign papers in boot camp, you sign to do whatever they want you to do. And guys didn't realize that. They go, I didn't sign up for Vietnam. Well, yeah, you did. It's right there on the, and, you know, interesting to note that, you know, what I went in for, you know, I never found out the idea. That was the second thing. I never found out who I really was or what I was good at. They always tested me in different areas, and it was like, you'd be a good radar man, or you'd be a good secretary. And I don't want to do that. You know, and so that's where all my scores were. And my submarines, they said when they got out of boot camp, they go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. You know, I go, you guys forgot about me putting in for subs and you signed up for subs? It says, well, your vision's too bad. So if you we're in a sub and you lost your glasses, you couldn't see. Well, I says, the bulkhead's right there, you know. And anyway, everybody that went to San Diego boot camp put in for different things. They were all sent to Vietnam. I mean, you had no choice anyway. And I realized how life is not really directed by logic. You know, you go in thinking one thing and you come out and you do something else. The other thing it was interesting as about what I learned is when I got back from my first tour, my good friend John Bird was going to UCSB, and we were down there. I was visiting him, and he was telling me that we were talking a lot, and that's when the Bank of America got burned down in Santa Barbara. And so I didn't think much of it, you know. I was real thinking, yeah, they burned it. The students burned the bank down during the 68, 67, like that. Anyway, when I got back from Vietnam, my second tour, we hooked up again. He had finished college. He said, you know, I tried to join the Army because when I took the officer test, I scored the highest ever. But then they took me in the back room and they showed me a picture of me and you standing in front of the burning Bank of America. They said you couldn't get a security clearance because you were connected to this burning, even though you weren't part of burning the bank down, you were in that crowd, and therefore it made you guilty. So I realized that, you know, in the military I had a certain limit of security, and I never figured that out because I was pretty clean I didn't go crazy until I joined the service, and then I went bizarre, because when you're over there, I mean, what do you do to relieve tension, you know? And most people drank, and other people smoked out, dropped, and were ODENs and everything else. So it was interesting to see that people are always watching you too. You never know what's happening, as the stories are true that you're always being observed.
That's crazy. Wow. Let's see. And your role model was your dad, you said?
Not really.
Not really, no?
No. He was my role model as far as, because he was always on 6-month cruises. He was, and did a great job. His men really respected him. I think I saw him in a different light when I saw him with his men that he worked with, and they really respected him and honored him because of it. But at home, he was never there. My mom took over. She was mainly, military families are run by the female. Mm-hmm. They take care of everybody because the husbands are gone all the time. Yeah, they're gone on tours, and so they move you if you have to move. My mom moved us, and Dad shows up later, but I really didn't have a role model. I had to look inside and see really what truth was all about and what kind of person I really wanted to be. And most of the people I hung around with were you know, they had attitudes. They were upset with being in the military, and they did stupid things. And so most people came to me because they would be freaking out on acid or something, and you know, I can't breathe. Oh, take them to Dave. He's some guru over there. You know, and I had long hair, and I would give them advice, which I had no idea what I was saying. And they go, "Okay, thanks." And you know, a friend of mine.
That soothing presence.
Yeah, one guy, a friend of mine on my boat was he was a Indian, and his parents told him that if he served, they would buy him a brand new Lincoln Continental when he got out of service. And so he was a Buddhist, and we'd have stuff happen, and he'd be chanting, and I'd be looking at him, and we're making it through, and I go, yeah, this is cool. Maybe I need one of those men around my neck. And we went to the Buddha and saw, guys, really, we had some crazy experiences. But when I got back, after we got out, he called me and says, I got my Lincoln Continental. You want to go for about a month, and we'll just tour around? And that's what we did. Lived in his car for about a month.
Where did you guys go? All around California?
He was in Washington. Yeah, he was in Washington State.
So you guys drove around there?
Yeah, just drove around Washington, California, and just hung out. You know, slept in the car. It was huge. You know, brand new Lincoln Continental.
It is. It's like boats, right?
So, you know, so I don't really think there was any, you know, role models. My company commander in boot camp, I mean, he was really hard on us, and you know, most people thought Navy boot camp was easy, but he was written up for abuse on us all, you know. But I realized what he was training us to do is react and not think about it, and that saved my butt. You know, just somebody says down and you go down rather than saying why. You know? Yeah, and I realized that it was for a reason. You know, my boat captain would I mean, these guys are all screwed up, and because of the war, what it's done to them. I mean, we'd be cruising along the Delta, and he'd be having his M79 grenade launcher out and shooting water buffalo from farmers. You know, I go, what are you doing with that? And then there's a VN patrol boat come up on us. He goes, Dave, go down there and cock the 50 and shoot him out of the water. He didn't care, so I go down, cock my 50. He told me what to do. And did him out, get out of here, you know. And they go, we're gonna report, go back to Saigon. No, he says, fire some shots across their bow, get them out of here, you know.
Wow.
So there's a lot of guys that really, the war really destroyed them. I mean, mentally, and they were not the right people. And I realized, that was another thing, I realized that there's a fine line between sanity and insanity, because people would go over and do things, how you react, and you've been trained, but how do you really react when things are happening? When the pressure's on and your life is at stake, how do you react? Do you back out? Do you stand up? And I saw some people that completely shrunk, other people that stood up. And you don't know what your character is unless you're really put under fire, and then all of a sudden you realize who you are and what you stand for. Are you going to stand and shoot, or are you going to back off and, you know, hide in a bunker?
You really see that fight, flight, or freeze in action, right?
Yeah, you do, and you can train all you want, but you don't know yourself till it happens. And then once you feel you're confident with who you are, you know, that's the biggest thing you learn about yourself, is that you know, stay the ground. You're anchored to, you know, the job. The mission is all important. I'm sure in the Marines and things, they're all trained differently in a way that the mission is, you know, utmost important no matter what you do. The Marines were always upset with us because we had long hair and full beards. We were called the Brown Navy, the Renegade Navy, because we had that. Our admiral said we could grow beards, and you would see Marines in starched uniforms. You go, how did you starch your uniform? You know, and they would just harass us because we were. Yeah, in fact, we came back once. My TDY station was Subic Bay. That's where our boats were. So we got on we got our boats there. We got on LST that moved your boats over to South China Sea, 5 days trip, and then they drop you in country, and you get back on LST after 5 months, 4 months, and they fix your boat there. And we come into Subic Bay. That was where we got quarantined for cholera. Didn't know that they were quarantined. When they picked us up, got our boat in, we're coming in, and there's Lieutenant JG on the water dock, and he looked at me, and I had an Australian hat on. I mean, I didn't have a Navy uniform, but Australian hat, you know, my hair was long. I still had my weapon on. I had my K-bar knife on. You know, I had everything, and I had shorts. So I wore shorts.
So it's almost like you're at like a festival or something.
Yeah, and he goes, he looks at me and says, "Sir, we don't serve the Australian Navy here." And I could hear right behind me, my boat captain, this crazy, you know, ex-UDT guy, Heroes 45 go, I go, oh shoot, you know. And he looks in, he goes, and I just stared at him, and I didn't know if he was going to shoot him on the dock or not. And then I could hear his voice. He says, "You get the, you know what, on the dock, we're the United States Navy." You know, so, and they go, "Oh, sorry, sir," and took off. But yeah, this 45, he's going to shoot him. You know, it was that crazy.
That guy wasn't messing around.
Yeah. Then when we got docked, then they put us on a bus, took us out, put us in the Philippine jungles for 2 weeks for training, then put us back on the boat, sent us back over.
Wow.
Yeah. That's it. But that's what you felt life was. You get used to it, and you're able to accommodate for it because you're in that environment.
Just ready for whatever.
And some people couldn't. I had not a friend of mine, but somebody on my base who he was really affected by, you know, the craziness of life over there. You know, people drinking, you know, doing all sorts of drugs and craziness. And I got back one time, and they said, "Oh yeah, they medevaced somebody because he had a nervous breakdown." And what it was he guys I know took him out into the village where the bars were. You know, villages were just like 2 or 3. It's a hut. That's the village. And Mama San would make ramen noodle soup and rice bread. And it was good stuff. And the guys would drink and stuff. And they took him out, and they got him drunk. He didn't know they were getting him drunk, but they did. And had, you know, one of the girls lay him. And so he had such a violent reaction to that, an emotional discharge, because he was living a lifestyle that nobody really understood. And so, you know, he was almost like a purist, and that was it. He couldn't do it anymore. He broke down because they broke him morally. Now, in boot camp, they break you physically, but in combat, you can get broken down morally. And later in years, when I joined the church, the LDS church, I found out he was LDS, and I realized his discipline, that how, chastity was so important to him, where everybody else it didn't matter, but for him it was his way of life. But when guys did that because somebody was different and made him an example, you can't be different, you got to be like us, and trick him into being like you because you'll enjoy it once you start it, or him, it destroyed him, and so that's what I had to realize, that people have their own values, and the idea is that not everybody is crazy, and that fine line between sanity and insanity, where people would do things, they would go out, my boat captain, my engineer would go out, and he would have his shotgun and shoot beans at night, and come back and play country western music and drink Jack Daniels, and I go, you know what you just did? He goes, I didn't do anything. I go, yeah, you did, and he would always show me his certificate that said he was declared sane by the United States Navy, because he was on a prior mission, was on a swift boat, and he was just ready to get in a gun tub, and his partner got blown away by a B-40 right in front of him, so it destroyed him. And there's where hospitals that are in the Philippines and on islands, they don't send you home when you have a nervous breakdown. You go to these psych wards, and he spent I don't know how much time he spent there, but they declared him sane, and he was ready to go back to action, and they told him he'd never be in a war zone again. He was on my boat. And he was so disconnected from his reality that he couldn't connect when it wasn't there. And same when we were flying back, when I got my cut and I was in Saigon, we got out, and everything was Comshaw. How I got out of Saigon was a crazy story, but because I was in E4, which every commanders and everybody else was trying to get out, because that's when everybody was leaving, and people were sleeping on the airport, and they'd been there 2 weeks. But anyway, I Comshaw on my way out because I had special goods that people wanted, and the E2s that were
out of here.
The Air Force guys that were behind the desk, I knew that they were, and I had been in Cambodia, and we were biking, so I had a whole bag of junk, and so I said, take a look at my bag, get me out of here. And they go, what's that in it? And I said, take a look. He goes, okay, you're on the next flight. I remember, he goes, Chief Petty Officer Drechsler, here's your ticket, you'll be on the next flight. Commander so-and-so, the Navy, he says, sorry, sir, we don't have a flight, we don't have a seat for you. And he looked at me, and I still remember that stare right through me. And I go, see you in the States, sir. He says, you dirty turkey. He didn't say it, he had bad words.
He took his flight.
But that idea, when I was flying back, I mean, guys who were just crazy over there they changed, and their families were there, and you see the families picking them up, and you go, oh my gosh, did they know they were doing this over there, and you look at the World War II vets and all that sort of thing, and I don't think we really understood it at the time, when when we got back, we were treated differently than when, the current, Iraq war and stuff, everything has changed. It's now there's all this respect for Vietnam vets.
Wow, experience. I almost joined the military.
No.
I feel like I should.
So my son, Josh, how old are you now?
43.
Right, yeah, Josh is 43, yeah. And he came up after high school and says, I want to join the National Guard, or the military, and I just freaked. I go, there's no way. And then I put Scotty, my youngest son.
That's your advice. That was my last question. Was what coaching would you offer your adults?
I still think there's validity in military. I think it's good for some people. I think it's important. I think if there is a war that's threatening us, and I mean, the military has changed since I've been in there. Even guys that were in the SEALs when I was down there, I mean, it just, it's changed as to, who gets to be a SEAL, who gets to, who's in charge and that sort of thing. And I think it's, because you don't have this, it's like the pioneers, and then the generation next were still strong in, their belief system of, life and endurance and battling through.
Make sure.
Did I go too long on that?
No, I want to make sure it's still going.
That and battling through the pioneers, the kids of the pioneers, like my dad, stuff like that, who had to struggle when they were immigrants, and how they did that. And then as that gets further away from the generations, they become soft. And these guys that were Navy SEALs, I talked to one guy. It was interesting because the SEAL team got toasted there because one of the NVA, one of the ARVN officers, we got him drunk. He says, he was one of told us about the NBA and it was out there and killing their families if they didn't talk about logistics and what the different what was happening. And so he squawked on the SEAL team and they got toasted. One guy was the only one to survive, and he years later, after I got through chiropractic school, I was going to a seminar and this guy was talking about him being that he was talking about setting fractures and things like that without anesthesia, and he says, oh yeah, he was working in Tahoe, you can just snap their fingers back in place, and it kind of gave me the creeps. And I go, wait a minute, that doesn't sound normal. I went up afterwards, I said, do I know you? He goes, I don't think so. He says, where were you before you were a chiropractor? He says, I was in the Navy. Oh really, where'd you see? He said, and he told me what LST was on. I go, oh, you're a Navy SEAL. That's because there's one LST that moves the SEALs around. He says, yeah, I bet. I said, were you at NAM camp in 1969? He goes, yeah, I was. I says, you were the only one left out of that ambush. He goes, yeah, I was. Wow. It was crazy how it comes around. Life comes around. And just like I told you about my son-in-law being Vietnamese, life comes around. And he said that the SEALs got soft after that, and he was sent to San Diego to train dolphins. And then he figured that, the ones that were getting into SEALs weren't the same. I mean, the SEALs, when I was there, is a different group, even though they're still strong and doing what they do, but and so you look at it, and he said that he hurt his ankle, went to a chiropractor and got into chiropractic school and became a chiropractor. It's crazy, but you see, I think life has this ability of becoming full circle, and you better be ready and what you say, who you do things to, and everything, because it's a full circle. It will come back at you.
It's karma right there.
Absolutely.
Energy you put out there coming back to you too. Whatever energy you put out.
And so when my son-in-law, Vietnamese, I knew he respected families, and I knew he would take care of my daughter and my grandsons, and he does. Has a different way, and I warned him that there was a different belief system between the two, but he still is a great person, even though he's it's just the way it worked out. So.
Does he cook for you?
He does cook.
You don't eat it?
He doesn't. My Gwen likes all that.
I like that
soup.
The fun.
Fun and all that. And his boys are fun. They're great kids. It was funny because my daughter, blonde hair, blue eyes, and my older grandsons, when she got married, blonde hair, blue eyes, and then she has two through Mike, and they're Asians, and you're walking down the street with Mike and my daughter, and then two blonde hair, blue eyes, and two Asians, for kids right there. But we still keep in contact with Griffin and them. Life is meant to be lived, but it's.
So you still talk to that guy still?
Huh?
You still talk to him still?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, we talk every week.
And that was the first time you met him in that school?
Yeah.
You guys never met in overseas though?
No. His parents were in North Vietnam. Yeah, and his family was rescued, so to speak, by the Catholic Church. Went over there and pulled out a lot of villagers and stuff and brought them into different parts of the states. And his parents were one of them, and so that's how he was born in Utah. That's where he ended up. But yeah, there's so much that is all about. You see what's going on now. We were watching like the Bob Dylan story or something, which is Bob Dylan. They went back in the 60s and stuff, and you look at then and you look at now, and it's the same thing. People are just got attitude, and it's just like in the service is the same way. If you're a different race, a different color, you have you aren't worthy to be in a certain group, and it's really sad to see that, and especially now that everybody works together. When you're in combat, you're a team, and when you're challenged, you're a team. But otherwise, it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's weird. That's still going on these days.
The same thing. We haven't learned.
We haven't learned. Bizarre.
Yeah, we haven't learned.
You think that's a thing of the past, but no. still relevant.
So you just protect your home and, you know, do good to others and love others and realize they have their own story and that's what you deal with.
Try to share the love, you know, so
Yeah.
it affects other people, you know.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, it's just like,
That's part of the group we're in too, LV. Our group's called Las Vegas Group 193.
uh-huh.
And so that's what, you know, all of our team members that we went through the course together with, you know,
Oh,
we're
cool.
all in
Uh-huh.
communication with each other still. And we're trying to share that kind of energy out.
It takes one
positivity.
person. You can affect everybody around you, even though your circle may be small, you can still affect those around you. And that's the important thing. Once they glean off you, it's like, you know, then, you know, they spread that and it's just like a pebble in the water that spreads and keeps going. You just spread love and understanding and compassion. That's what we want. Like people come in and, you know, I always want to change people's ideas when they talk to me. You know, they always, you know, because of what I've been through and, well, how's it going? Don't tell me how it's going. Yeah, how do you think it's going? My life is trashed. But I always like to tell them and go, you know, I always like to have them ask me, you know, good to see you. It's all right. If people come up and say good to see you, it makes you feel good, doesn't it? Hey, good to see you. It's not, how's your life? You know, how you doing? Because they don't want to hear anyway.
Yeah.
You know, it's not real. And I don't think we're real enough with each other and to listen and have compassion. And so that's something we're all continuing to learn.
We're all kind of going through the same stuff anyway. You know?
Yeah, and we want to do it together. And you hear that when all these tragic accidents, you know, these gun things happen, these, you know, guys that are out there shooting people, and, you know, and the big grid is, what you're hearing repetitively is, you know, we all need to team together and love one another. And that's what it is, you know, it's to love yourself and love everybody and allow them to have their space and be who they are, you know, no matter what they do. Unless they come into your house and I got my AR-15. I didn't say
my
that.
bat won't work. No, it won't work. They get me like a concealed carry or something like that. Thank you, Dr. B.
Yeah, my claymores are set up.